You know how at the start of Banjo-Tooie, Gruntilda steals King Jingling's life force with the B.O.B? And at the very end of the game, you return said life force to Jingling with the B.O.B again. And you also revive Bottles, who was killed outright by Gruntilda in the very beginning cutscene. So then, where did this extra life force for Bottles come from, since he wasn't actually hit with the B.O.B? This is completely unrelated to the video, but this really bothers me, so I really needed to mention this. Anyway, when people talk about Mario Odyssey, one thing that's often brought up is the fact that collecting a moon doesn't throw you out of the level anymore, like in previous Mario games. Bitch, Banjo did this 20 years ago. Clearly, this game was truly ahead of its time. If you watch any review on Banjo-Kazooie, you will generally hear the same things. Like, this game is fucking brilliant. 10 out of 10. Masterpiece! And you know, I definitely agree. This game is fucking fantastic. But you know, there's no such thing as a flawless game. And I'm not just talking about the wonky camera controls. What the fuck is... What? Camera, please? Okay. I think most people are already aware of that. No, there's one specific thing about this game that really kind of bothers me, and it has to do with how they handled Gruntilda. Now, I will say that I think Gruntilda is a fantastic villain. And that's not because she has a deeply fleshed out character or motivations or anything. Banjo-Kazooie is not a game with a very complex and captivating story to necessitate that after all. No, Gruntilda Winky Bunyan is a fantastic villain because she provides the perfect motivation for the player. This isn't your average cardboard cutout villain that only serves as an endgame obstacle. I mean, I suppose Tootie is supposed to be kind of a main motivator, since the reason you entered the witch's lair to begin with is to save her, but do you honestly care? I mean, not even Kazooie seems to care too much, so how can you expect the player to give a shit? Tootie is the damsel in distress plot device character that facilitates the story of the game, kind of like Princess Peach is in most Mario games. In Mario, the story ends when the princess is saved though, but not in Banjo-Kazooie. That's because Tootie isn't the only motivation for the player. Oh no. The biggest motivator is arguably the witch Gruntilda herself. Gruntilda mercilessly taunts you whenever you accomplish anything, whenever you fail, and even when you're just stumbling around her lair trying to figure out how to raise the fucking water level. When she throws around doofy insults in rhyme format, it makes you want to go up there and kick her in the weird malformed chin to teach her a lesson. This is why at the end of the game, when you beat her in a game of Trivial Pursuit and she concedes Tootie as the prize, you still chase after her to kick her ass, even though you've already accomplished what you came to do here in the first place. So, why is this important? Well, it all has to do with the reason that makes the final battle so cathartic. At its core, the final battle of the game is nothing more than an act of vengeance. Finally putting the overly confident, cocky witch who has been making fun of you this whole game in her place. Dealing out blows to her isn't only satisfying on the surface gameplay level, because you're dealing damage to her, but also on a deeply emotional level. You know, revenge may be kind of a gross part of the human experience, but it's undeniable that it feels really good. Conversely, when she hits you, she makes sure to let you know that you're no match for her. When I first battled Gruntilda, it was after many years of playing the game. At first I didn't even try beating some of the later levels because they're so ridiculously hard, but gradually I powered my way through the game and finally managed to face her. And she quickly mopped the floor with me and mocked me some more. This stopped being about Tootie long ago, but now things have gotten deeply personal. Her insults only fueled my determination to defeat her, and I tried over and over and over again, continuously failing, but making progress each attempt. The battle is long and arduous and tests your abilities using almost the entire moveset you've learned through the game. Eventually, I made it to the part where Gruntilda must have realized that she's in trouble and finally decides to put up her magical barrier. Makes you wonder why she didn't just do that from the beginning. Anyway, at this point the Jinjos show themselves to help you out, which is pretty cool. Now the Jinjos will be able to get their revenge as well. So after activating the Jinjos, they fly into Gruntilda, which destroys her broomstick and she topples to the ground. This is a crucial moment of the battle. The stage has been set for the ultimate final blow to finish her off. And yet, there doesn't seem to be an opening. She still has that shield around her, and she's still throwing fireballs at me that I've learned to dodge with relative ease. The battle is at a stalemate. It's at this point that the game makes a major slip up in my opinion. Whoa, his bed is slippery? What the fuck? So after dodging fireballs for a little bit, this monstrosity appears who calls himself the Mighty Gingernator, who hasn't ever been mentioned before in the game, or will he ever be mentioned after this? I didn't stop to question it at the time though, because Grunty really ups the ante on her fireballs at this stage. So you really have to focus on dodging while also shooting eggs to activate the Gingernator. I was playing it safe, so it took a little while, but eventually I managed to fill up all the slots and activate him. And he starts going ham on Gruntilda. She casts spells to deflect blow after blow, but it's clear that she's at a disadvantage here. Especially when he starts charging up and she's quivering in her boots. The Gingernator unleashes one final strike and... Wait, did you just fucking steal my kill? Yeah, I think the Gingernator was a big mistake by the developers. Not only is he conveniently introduced in the middle of the final battle like some Doofenshmirtz contraption, but he has the audacity to take the final blow for himself. You know, the thing about the Jinjos is that I don't really care about them beyond the Jiggies they have in their possession. Yeah, it's sad that Grunty imprisoned them and all, but when I've collected all 5 of them and they hand over the Jiggy, they have outlived their usefulness to me. At that point, I could not care less about their existence at all anymore. You've had your fun destroying Gruntilda's broomstick, but the final blow that sends her tumbling should really be dealt by me. Don't get me wrong, it was definitely satisfying to watch Gruntilda fall, but I think that feeling would have been much more potent if the final blow was dealt by her own hands. This whole game you've had to put up with Gruntilda taunting and mocking you, laughing at you when you fail, and belittling every achievement you accomplish. And at the climax of it all, you don't even get to do the final attack that finishes her off. So let's rework the final battle a little bit to make it that much more satisfying. I think the best way to finish off Gruntilda would be with a beak bomb attack, since it just feels powerful. I mean, the Gingernator is doing essentially the same thing anyway, so it just makes sense. In order to facilitate that, we'd have to change a few things though. First of all, the part where you take to the sky and fight Gruntilda head on should be switched with the part where you get help from the Jinjos. We can make it so that Jinjos destroy Gruntilda's barrier instead of her broomstick, after which the flight pad appears. You beak bomb her much like the original battle, and after a couple of attacks you destroy her broomstick and she falls to the ground. Now all you have to do is line up that final shot to send her flying. But it wouldn't make a lot of sense if she just stood around waiting for you to hit her, so we can make her hop around the side of the tower while occasionally taking pot shots at you. Maybe even teleporting to the opposite side every once in a while. When you finally manage to hit her, a little cutscene plays that shows Banjo and Kazooie dealing the final blow from several different camera angles to really emphasize this critical moment. And from there everything plays out as usual. I think if the battle played out like this, it would have been just that much better and a lot more memorable. Alternatively, we could just make it so that the Gingernator doesn't appear out of thin air like a Deus Ex Machina. I've already mentioned this before, but the Jinjos have very little depth to them, so there's not much separating them from an average collectible, like the 8 red coins in Mario 64, for example. If the Gingernator were a pre-established character in some way, this final scene would make a lot more sense. Like in the second game, there's this whole Jinjo village ruled by King Jingaling, but he doesn't really do much other than give you a Jiggy and promptly getting zapped by the big O blaster. If the Jinjo village existed in Banjo-Kazooie and the Gingernator was replaced by King Jingaling, I wouldn't really have any issues with this finale. It would make Grunty blasting his ass in the second game a lot more impactful as well, since he would be a much more important ally that has more to offer besides just handing you a Jiggy. I'm well aware that this game isn't very story focused, but that doesn't mean you can just insert a game deciding character like this at the very end of the game when it's most convenient while not making any sense whatsoever. How dare you cheat? Yeah, I can't really argue with that. This is pretty cheating. Oh fuck. All of this isn't to say that I think Banjo-Kazooie is a bad game, or even that the final boss fight is bad. In fact, Banjo-Kazooie is probably my favorite video game to this day. Of course, part of the reason for that is probably nostalgia, but even now it's hard for me to point out a lot of flaws with this game. You know, other than the obvious camera issues. Banjo-Kazooie has a stellar soundtrack, the game is dripping with character, and the worlds are fun as hell to explore. It's just that because this game is so fantastic, that the few blemishes it does have stick out a lot more. Plenty of people will refer to Banjo-Kazooie as a masterpiece, and I definitely agree with that notion. Calling it a flawless masterpiece would be short-sighted though. After all, there's no such thing as a perfect video game. Because what classifies as a perfect video game is ultimately subjective, and a lot more subjective than what classifies as a good video game. That's why it's important to critically examine even the most beloved games out there. Not doing so would honestly be doing them a disservice. So with that in mind, why don't you leave a comment with your thoughts and opinions? I'm interested to see if other people feel the same way, or maybe you have a completely different take on the matter. Be sure to let me know. Also, I do have a Discord server where we talk about all sorts of things. Feel free to talk to me about pretty much anything on there. Thanks for watching, and see you later.